The 25th of November marks the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women.
The royal family has traditionally valued tradition, including titles, lineage, and obligation. But inside those royal walls, where velvet curtains conceal centuries of secrets, nothing is really set in stone. This time, the headlines aren't about a prince or a monarch. It's a youngster, Princess Charlotte, whose modest elegance and rising popularity have sparked a full-fledged royal maelstrom. In the middle of it all, according to palace sources, Queen Camilla is absolutely livid after Princess Charlotte received a royal distinction that many expected to go to her grandchild. The action, supported by King Charles and purportedly pushed ahead by Prince William and Princess Kate, has not only astonished royal observers, but has also unleashed a torrent of rage from Camilla, according to insiders, shattering what little calm remained inside the palace. The title itself, still veiled in royal ambiguity, may seem ceremonial to the public, but for those within the firm, it represents legitimacy, future power, and legacy. And in a monarchy that is always fighting to stay relevant, who gets these distinctions says volumes. For Camilla, whose children and grandkids were not born into royal blood, her choice has revived old wounds about acceptance, position, and whether she can ever really be considered one of them. According to sources close to Clarence's house, Camilla has long advocated for her granddaughter, Lola Parker Bowles, to receive a similar award. Camilla, who was not born a royal, reportedly pressured Charles for years to find a method to elevate her side of the family, gently incorporating them into the royal fabric, and for a time, it seemed like her desire may come true, until now. Because, in a startling twist, the Windsors have once again delivered a clear message about who controls the crown's future, and it is not the Parker Bowles line. What happened behind closed doors was nothing short of explosive. Disagreements, accusations, and even whispers of Camilla threatening to quit from her responsibilities. And as the public starts to piece together what occurred, social media has exploded, dividing Team Kate and Team Camilla, with Charlotte now at the center of the palace's newest power battle. This isn't simply a tale about the title. It is a narrative of legacy, devotion, and a monarchy that has yet to heal from Diana's death. And if you thought Queen Camilla would sit quietly while Charlotte's fame rose, think again. Camilla has finally snapped, and what happens next might alter everything. It was intended to be a low-key announcement, just another entry in the royal record books, a ceremonial distinction bestowed to recognize Princess Charlotte's expanding position within the monarchy. But what should have been a respectful, almost anticipated choice quickly escalated into a full-fledged catastrophe inside the royal gates. Because this was not just any title. This was the term that set Queen Camilla's realm ablaze. According to well-placed palace insiders, Princess Charlotte was officially accorded the title of Duchess of Edinburgh in Waiting, an extraordinary gesture that essentially establishes her as the future possessor of one of Britain's most historically important and renowned duchies. The Edinburgh title has always been reserved for senior male royals, but in what insiders describe as a daring and strategic move, Charles disregarded centuries of custom to gain it for his granddaughter. And this was no random choice. It was a planned message about the monarchy's future. For months, if not years, there had been reports that Camilla was secretly advocating for her granddaughter, Lola Parker Bowles, to be acknowledged in a similar fashion. According to those close to Camilla, she thought that recognizing Lola would strengthen her family's position and ultimately quiet opponents who have long said the Parker Bowles children are outsiders in a bloodline-based environment. Camilla saw it as an opportunity to provide her grandchildren with the royal legitimacy that had previously evaded them, to rewrite history and guarantee her own legacy. But the rug was ripped out from under her. Because behind the scenes, Prince William and Princess Kate had been advocating for Charlotte's promotion to a senior title, claiming that the young princess, who was already popular with the people, needed a job that represented her status as a direct heir's daughter. Kate, ever the strategist, allegedly presented the decision as contemporary and inclusive, a means to honor Charlotte as a symbol of a modernizing, forward-thinking monarchy. And Charles, seeking to boost his dwindling popularity and possibly alleviate some of the remorse he still feels over his treatment of Diana, supported William and Kate. When the news was ultimately revealed in a small private gathering at Clarence's house, Camilla's response was immediate and angry. Witnesses said she gazed at Charles in surprise, her face becoming scarlet with horror as the truth set in. "You've humiliated me!" she allegedly shouted, storming out of the room. The queen consort, who had fought tirelessly for decades to convert from the other woman to royal matriarch, was unexpectedly overshadowed once more, this time by the same forces that had tormented her since the Diana years. The symbolism underlying the judgment added to its impact. The Edinburgh title is more than simply a name on paper. It's a duchy steeped in history, power, and respect, and Prince Philip has held it for the most of his life, a title previously linked with duty, strength, and unwavering commitment to the crown. Giving Charlotte this distinction meant elevating her above Camilla's desires for her own family. Royal analysts lost no time assessing the importance of the action. This was William and Kate staking their claim on the future, one observer observed. It conveys a clear message. The monarchy descended directly from the Windsors. Camilla's family, whatever near to the monarchy they seem, will always be on the outside looking in. Inside the palace, the consequences were swift. Camilla, feeling taken aback and deceived, allegedly stormed out at Charles behind closed doors, demanding to know why he had not spoken up for her grandchildren. Charles, ever the divided king, could provide little solace. He knew the choice would be popular, and he understood that opposing it would risk widening the divide between himself and William, the future king. The royal title intended to honor Charlotte had instead sparked a conflict, pitting Camilla against the same institution she had worked so hard to reconcile with. And as the storm intensified, it became evident that this was more than simply a title. This was about power, allegiance, and the future of the kingdom. And Camilla? She was not ready to give it up without a struggle. To the outside world, Queen Camilla frequently seems as a kind, smiling grandmother, willing to stand by King Charles and diligently support the kingdom. However, those who know Camilla personally tell a quite different narrative, a tale of hidden plans, subtle manipulations, and unwavering ambition. Because for years, Camilla has had one burning desire: to ensure a seat at the royal table for her own flesh and blood, her cherished grandchildren. Camilla had always understood that no matter what titles she was awarded, how many official photos she posed for, or how many events she attended, her Parker Bowles family would never be considered part of the royal inner circle. Tom and Laura, the children of her previous marriage, are considered outsiders by royal conservatives. And although Camilla adores her grandkids, they have no royal blood. But Camilla, ever determined, would not let that be the end of the tale. Insiders allege Camilla worked quietly for years, cultivating the seeds of acceptance in Lola and Freddie Parker Bowles' lives. Invitations to select palace events, carefully arranged picture opportunities, and subtle clues in interviews where Camilla talked glowingly of her grandchildren's relationship to royal values. These were no coincidences. Every gesture was part of a larger game. Camilla allegedly persuaded Charles behind closed doors to look at methods to bring Lola and Freddie closer to royal favor. She considered awarding honorary titles or developing new ceremonial responsibilities to connect her grandchildren more openly to the monarchy. Camilla is alleged to have questioned Charles many times why his family couldn't be more contemporary and why the monarchy couldn't accept the mixed makeup of today's royal family. After all, Hadn't the populace come to embrace her as queen consort despite her controversial past? But Charles, cautious and bound by precedent, paused. He was well aware that any attempt to elevate Camilla's grandchildren would face opposition, notably from William, Kate, and their allies, who have long considered Camilla's aspirations as a danger to the Windsor line's legitimacy. Camilla persevered. She made sure Lola and Freddie were seen at the correct times, such as viewing Trooping the Color from a private balcony, attending Christmas church services at Sandringham, and appearing in discreet family photos supplied to the press. According to one royal aide, Camilla believed that if the public could see her grandchildren as part of the family, eventually the palace would have no choice but to formalize that bond. It was a risk that required patience, subtlety, and the hope that Charles's heart would eventually triumph over royal protocol. And for a while, it seemed like the strategy would succeed. Rumors circulated in courtier circles that Charles was contemplating inventing new, modern-style awards that might be conferred on non-blood relations as a show of inclusion for a modernizing monarchy. Camilla's hopes rose, but the introduction of Princess Charlotte's new title dashed their hopes. Charles had not only failed to make room for Camilla's offspring, but he had also doubled down on royal tradition by emphasizing the Windsor lineage above all. Camilla considered this the ultimate betrayal. Years of silent scheming, strategic placement, and optimistic murmurs were all undone in a second. And now, as Charlotte's fame rises, Camilla sees her grandchildren's chances of royal legitimacy fading. Insiders believe that revelation is what eventually drove Camilla over the brink. The walls of Clarence House have seen their fair share of royal squabbles over the years, but what happened the night after Princess Charlotte's title was proclaimed astonished even the most experienced servants. What began as a tense, private discussion between husband and wife escalated into what one insider described as the most explosive clash between the king and queen consort since the early days of their marriage. Camilla, who had worked so hard over the years to keep her rage concealed from inquisitive eyes, could no longer control herself. The mask dropped as the massive doors closed behind them. She turned on Charles with a gaze that, one assistant said, could have cut glass. "How can you degrade me like this?" She seethed, her voice low and shaking with wrath. "After everything I've done, after everything I've given up, you let her kids steal what should have been my granddaughter's." Charles, taken aback by the severity of her scream, attempted to soothe her. "Camilla, this concerns the monarchy's future, about gaining public support." But his statements just fueled the fire. "Spare me the duty lecture," Camilla snapped, smashing her hand into a side table, tipping a vase dangerously. "It's about them. It has always been. William and Kate get everything, and I am supposed to grin and wave as my family is ignored, as if they do not exist." Camilla had swallowed the subtle slights for years, including how William barely tolerated her presence at family gatherings, and how Kate's elegance and kindness always pulled the cameras away from her. But this was unforgivable. Camilla believed Charles had chosen them over her over again. Charles, divided between his wife's sorrow and the reality of his job as king, could only stand in startled silence as Camilla's allegations spilled forth. She reminded him of vows made throughout their lengthy affair. They would always protect one another, and her family would never feel like outsiders. "And now," she said, "you've made it apparent that my grandkids are unimportant to this family. Nothing at all." The disagreement heated up as Camilla, who is normally so good at maintaining her image, let decades of hatred out. She accused Charles of being weak, of succumbing to William's wishes, and of failing to defend the lady who had supported him through scandal and humiliation. Tears of frustration welled up in her eyes, and she struggled to wipe them away. Charles attempted to reason with her. He talked of national responsibility and the necessity to safeguard the monarchy's continuation via popular choices. Charlotte's title honors the direct line, Camilla. The people will never accept, but she cut him off. What about the public? Since when have you been so concerned with what the public thinks of me? Insiders claim that the king and queen consort slept in separate rooms that night for the first time since Charles was crowned. As morning rose over Buckingham Palace, the animosity between them had not subsided. Camilla's rage remained unquenched, and Charles realized that whatever fragile peace had existed between his wife and his heir had now been broken. What had been meant as a show of solidarity, a title to represent the future, had instead ignited a spark underneath the monarchy, and the explosion wasn't over. While Camilla's rage filled the royal halls, Catherine, Princess of Wales, strode through the maelstrom with calm, measured elegance. If Camilla's response was all fire and wrath, Kate's approach was the polar opposite, calm, calculated, and devastatingly successful. Because, make no mistake, the choice to give Princess Charlotte a senior royal title was not made by happenstance. This was, in many respects, Kate's victory, the result of months, if not years, of subtle persuasion and steadfast emphasis on the crown's future. Those close to Kate describe her as the monarchy's greatest chess player, a lady who understands when to speak, when to remain silent, and when to gently steer events to their eventual end. Kate had always been adamant that Charlotte would never be overshadowed by her brothers. She understood the weight of history, how royal daughters were often forgotten, their accomplishments discounted, and their titles treated as an afterthought. Kate was determined that Charlotte's path would vary. Kate worked discreetly behind the scenes, beginning with conversations about resurrecting or reassigning famous titles throughout King Charles' reign. She never demanded, she never raised her voice, but in private meetings and gentle talks with advisors, she made it plain that Charlotte needed a title that represented not only her status in the family, but also her potential as a symbol of a contemporary, inclusive monarchy. What made Kate's victory even more amazing was that she did it without alienating people around her. While Camilla raged and schemed, Kate formed connections. Courtiers who had previously fought change were lured to her idea of a monarchy that respected history while yet moving forward. Even older royals, such as Princess Anne, allegedly came out in favor of Charlotte's ascension, viewing the young princess as a kindred spirit, duty-bound, confident, and unafraid to stand tall in a man's world. According to insiders, Kate reminded Charles of his mother's legacy, how Queen Elizabeth II updated the monarchy with calm power while without sacrificing its essential ideals. Charlotte, Kate contended, could embody the same spirit. A royal girl receiving the honor she deserves would send a strong message to the public. The kingdom cherished all of its successors, not only males. Of all, Kate's win was about more than just championships. It was also about preserving Diana's legacy. Every action Kate takes, every choice she makes, has the weight of respecting the lady who came before her, her mother-in-law, whom she has never seen but whose shadow hangs big in the palace. Kate was not just influencing her daughter's destiny by ensuring Charlotte acquired this title. She was regaining a bit of Diana's dream, a royal family that supported its girls as much as its males. But true to style, Kate did not gloat. There were no smirks, hidden insults, or public demonstrations of victory. She just went about her responsibilities, maintaining a calm demeanor in front of the cameras, although knowing that the balance of power had altered imperceptibly behind closed doors. Because in the end, Kate realized what Camilla did not. True power does not stem from tantrums or threats. It comes from gaining respect, staying steady, and constantly having an eye to the future. And in that future, Charlotte's light is shining brighter than ever, owing in large part to her mother's calm fortitude. The response to Princess Charlotte's new title was swift and immensely favorable. On social media, royal watchers, analysts, and fans exploded in joy. Headlines hailed it as a historic step for the modern monarchy, and a proud moment for Princess Charlotte, the future face of the royal family. But among the cheers and praise for Charlotte, one figure was conspicuously absent: Queen Camilla, and she felt the sting of that omission more deeply than anyone could have predicted. On Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, hashtags such as #PrincessCharlotte, #FutureQueen, and #Diana's Legacy trended for hours. Memes and tributes flooded in, including photographs of Charlotte waving gently at public occasions, side-by-side comparisons of Charlotte and a young Diana, and footage of her soothing tiny Louis during Trooping the Color. Commenters praised her charm, grace, and what they dubbed her natural-born royal glow. One popular post said, "Diana would be very pleased. Charlotte, like her grandmother, is the people's princess." Another added, "Kate's daughter, Diana's soul. The monarchy's future is secure." But as Charlotte's reputation increased, Camilla became more isolated. The same sites that hailed Charlotte cruelly criticized Camilla, reopening old wounds and issuing new critiques. Comment threads were filled with nasty remarks. Camilla can scheme all she wants, but the bloodline will always win. She attempted to rewrite history. History said no. Tabloid headlines did not help. The Daily Mirror headline read, "Camilla's fury as Charlotte steals the spotlight," while the Sun declared, "Camilla loses out. Again, Diana's granddaughter receives the crown's blessing." Even royale-friendly newspapers like The Telegraph hinted at the friction, stating that palace insiders characterized Camilla as very wounded and feeling marginalized. Behind the scenes, those closest to the queen consort created an image of a lady withdrawing into herself. Camilla, who had previously been a constant presence at Charles's side, suddenly seemed preoccupied during engagements. Observers observed that her customary easy smiles were forced and her laughing hollow. She started declining smaller public events, claiming exhaustion or pressing personal matters. One source said, "This isn't just about Charlotte, it's about Charlotte and what she symbolizes." Camilla recognizes that the future of the monarchy belongs to William, Kate, and their children, and that her power is dwindling quicker than she can understand it. Even Charles seems helpless to bridge the increasing divide. Torn between his allegiance to his wife and his responsibility to the kingdom and his heir, the king allegedly advised Camilla to look at the broader picture and concentrate on unity. Camilla, who was nursing her wounds, found these remarks to be of little consolation. To her, oneness represented erasure. Camilla's anger rose as the public's admiration for Charlotte increased. She saw Charlotte become a fresh symbol of hope for the monarchy, just as Diana had been. And Camilla, who had previously been so secure in her position as queen, now felt more like an outsider than ever, a woman trapped in the shadow of a heritage she could never escape. Camilla's isolation intensified with each cheerful picture of Charlotte and headline praising Kate's kid, a queen consort caught in a golden cage of her own construction, watching the future slip farther away from her reach. In the end, what was intended to be a calm, ceremonial gesture became a watershed moment, not only for Princess Charlotte, but for the monarchy's future as well. The title conferred to Charlotte was more than just an honor. It was a declaration, a clear, unambiguous indication that William, Kate, and their children are responsible for the crown's future. It was a moment that reinforced the royal lineage, stopped murmurs of compromise, and reawakened Diana's soul via her granddaughter. Camilla considered this more than a loss. It was a sobering reminder that no matter how long she has worn the crown or how faithfully she has performed the duties of queen consort, she will never really create the royal destiny. The public's devotion, their hopes and loves, is firmly with the following generation, Charlotte, George, and Louis, who are directed by their mother's steady hand. In this newest episode, Camilla found herself not just ignored, but isolated. her family dreams quietly shattered by forces she could no longer control. And what about Charles? The monarch, torn between duty and devotion, is now facing the repercussions of decisions that have exacerbated divides among his own family. His effort to safeguard the monarchy's survival by honoring Charlotte may have garnered popular support, but it has also exacerbated the schism with the lady who once stood by his side against the world. Princess Charlotte, for her own, is blissfully oblivious of the uproar her new title has caused. But one thing is certain: her fame is growing, and with it, a new chapter in the royal family's history begins. One molded not by scandal or conspiracies, but by the calm courage of a girl carrying a nation's dreams. And what about Camilla? The fight may be lost, but sources warn that she is far from done. Because in the royal game of legacy and power, no loss is ever really permanent. And the next step might alter everything.